All right, we're recording. All right, so we're on Unit 3, Module 7, Security Monitoring through Data Analysis, which is why I don't know if you guys saw, I threw, there was somebody put together a class that was just nothing but data analysis videos, so I threw that out there in case you guys were interested in that. So those are in the video section. So if you want to, feel free to go out and look at those. Okay, so monitor, what they're talking about is to observe, oversee, or keep an eye on. Monitoring should be conducted on endpoints and systems. The modern email system is often an overlooked area that requires monitoring. A lot of the time now people do third-party emails, so they tend to think, oh, I don't need to monitor that. And even if you're doing a third-party system, you really need to keep an eye on it because, and I will say this just outright, even though I like Gmail, their baseline spam filter is still not the best. If you have the ability to get in there and change it, yay. If you are using all third-party stuff, then you definitely need to, yeah, so much spam. Yeah, it's really the best to pair them with your own systems and monitor everything. Endpoint monitoring. So this endpoints refers to your network connected hardware devices. And for every endpoint is a potential entry point that can be exploited by threat actors. So basically, if you think about an endpoint, what they're talking about is everything from your computers to your IoT devices, just basically everything that is connected. And, you know, we've talked multiple times about getting in and pivoting to multiple systems. So just remember that. Involves monitoring hardware either for evidence or compromise or for irregular behavior. Monitoring for both factors is ideal. Monitoring hundreds of thousands of endpoints is virtually impossible. Products that can assist in, if you're doing that by hand, I think is what they mean. The products that you can use to assist in hardware monitoring are endpoint protection platforms, which includes basic monitoring tools, endpoint detection and response. And I actually really like these. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to use them, but these include more advanced detection capabilities as well as the ability to intervene and remediate any problems on your endpoints, which if you were like me, you're working in a small IT thing and you're the only security person and you're dealing with thousands of endpoints, you really need an EDR system. And even then, you still have to go out and look for things like false positives, false negatives, and new things that pop up. So EDR is very, very good for that. Reverse engineering malware. This is disassembles and analyzes malware to determine how it functions so that it can be recognized by hardware monitoring tools. Now, there are people that do nothing but this as their job, and you can make a lot of money doing this if you're good at it. User and entity behavior analytics involves monitoring user behavior and system and application behavior. System and application behavior is what they're talking about is the behavior of the technological system. Uses normal processes and actions as the standard known good behavior instead of searching for abnormalities or anomalous behavior. Weaknesses can be targeted by exploit techniques. A process that is as essential as hardware monitoring, network monitoring. So you have open systems interconnection, or OSI, reference model for network designed by the International Organization for Standards. So I have noticed there are quite a few spelling errors in this one, so bear with us. Specifications describe how dissimilar computers can be connected on a network. Networking steps are broken down to a series of 7 layers. So you remember the OSI models that where we talked about the 7 layers. This is what they're talking about. Each layer cooperates with the layer immediately above and below it. Each layer is in the sending device corresponds to the layer in the receiving device. Each layer is compartmentalized. And when they're talking about layer 2, they're talking about that one is particularly weak. Involves packet and protocol analysis, flow analysis, uniform resource location, and domain system analysis. Now, we've done a bit of packet and protocol analysis for some of our stuff, but what they're talking about refers to analyzing packets and protocols used on network in search of malware, or not even just in search of malware. Sometimes it's just in search of flaws within the packets, malformed packets, things like that. This involves capturing and analyzing packets and analyzing the protocols used on the network. Capturing packets. This is achieved through network switches and can be accomplished by one of 2 methods: installing a separate port test access point, or a TAP, an out-of-band device that transmits, send, and receive data streams simultaneously on separate dedicated channels. Data arrives at the monitoring tool in real time. And then there's port mirroring or port spanning. This uses a compatible managed switch on an Ethernet network, configures a network switch to mirror the traffic that occurs on some or all of the ports to a designated monitoring port on the switch. Now, a lot of times, if you have somebody that's a good network analyst, they'll use a combination of both. Packet analysis provides valuable cybersecurity information by examining the entire contents of the packet, detects unusual behavior that may indicate presence of a potential threat. Packets capture programs. So remember, we were looking at Wireshark earlier. There's EtherApe and TCP dump. There's PCAP is also an export format. Protocol analysis is used to verify approved tools being used to identify an unauthorized protocol used on the network, analyzes only the header information. So that's why you really want to use packet and protocol analysis. All right. Binnington was asked to recommend an analysis method to determine if an attack has successfully penetrated the network. He decided upon an analysis that only looked at the header information of captured packets. What analysis method did he select? Topology analysis, anomaly analysis, packet analysis, protocol analysis. They literally just told you the slide before. And a bunch of you are wrong. Okay, so protocol analysis is the only thing that it looks at is that, what do you call it? Header. The header is the only thing protocol analysis looks at. Packet analysis looks at the whole thing. Protocol analysis only looks at the header. Okay, flow analysis. This is also called network traffic analysis. It just depends on who you're talking to. It's used to troubleshoot network issues and identify performance bottlenecks. Flow analysis for cybersecurity is different from traditional network traffic flow. It eliminates monitoring agents, uses deep packet inspection, and provides richer information. Flow analysis data can be accumulated from different sources. So you can use NetFlow, SFlow, and IPFix as different tools. So then we also have uniform resource location and domain name system analysis. This involves filtering requests to remote internet sources, blocks users from accessing malicious websites and domains. A growing challenge is blocking an infected endpoint from communicating back through the internet to a site controlled by a threat actor. There's just so many changes that's why it's difficult to do now. An infected endpoint can receive attack instructions in many ways. They can do automatically signing into a website operated by a threat actor, signing into a third-party website, reading commands sent via blogs, reading drafts, emails, and Gmail that contain commands written by threat actors. This is also called a dead drop. And when they're talking about CNC, it's the command and control server that they're talking about. So it's a dead drop command and control mechanism. A global technique used to prevent command and control communication obtains legal permission to seize a known domain and turn it into a sinkhole. Helps block malware containing a hard-coded static URL. So they really tried to do this in a lot of, I've seen this a lot in like kiddie porn cases or things like that, where they have a known site and they're trying to catch people using this site. So what they do is they go out and they grab it. It's a known domain to these people. They turn it into a sinkhole, so all the traffic just goes boop, and they get all the information of the people that are trying to access it. It actually works really well for them. So it looks like you're having a problem on your end when really someone is just tracking what you're doing. In response to legal measures of blocking static URLs, threat attackers add code to malware to create dynamic URLs. This involves using a domain generation algorithm, or DGA, to create multiple random potential URLs. So, you know, anytime they create a new thing when it comes to law enforcement, there's always going to be a threat actor that figures out a way around it. So this is how you generate domains using a DGA. So there's your static value, and then you add your dynamic value, generate random seed from trending Twitter hashtag is what they've got on here, and then pseudo random string generator, and then select top level domain, and then you've got your .com, org, net, tickets, Black Friday, feedback, whatever, and now you have your random domain. Does that make sense to everybody? It's actually pretty slick. Okay. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I was trying to move that one. Which tool would a threat actor use in malware to generate random dynamic URLs? We literally just did this, so. You're doing well, keep guessing. My spidey sense says B. Yes, DGA, good job. Email analysis. Now, I have a lot more experience with this just because one of the last major projects I did was finding a decent third-party spam filter to help work with our, because we switched from an on-prem Outlook server to a cloud Gmail server. And even then we were like, whoa, this is way too much spam. So I had to go out and create all the proposals and all that and find people. So I got to see how they did all the back end work, and actually ran into a product from a company out of Ireland, and they were some of the best engineers I've ever worked with, because they were like, yeah, whatever, we'll just set up times with you, even though we're on a different, they're like 6 or 7 hours ahead of us where they were, and they were absolutely willing to just walk us through everything. Some of the nicest software engineers I've ever met. So I got to see how they did all sorts of cool stuff. So it's really, really interesting. So basic components involved in sending and receiving. You have your mail user agent. That's application or web interface that's used to read and send your emails from your endpoint. Mail transfer agent, a program that accepts emails from senders and routes them to recipients. MUAs initially depend on SMTP protocol, which is your simple mail transfer protocol, and post office protocol, which is what POP stands for, POP3. So SMTP sends email to mail server. POP3 downloads messages from the user's mail server, but later this was replaced by Internet Access Message Protocol, or IMAP. I don't see POP3 used a whole lot anymore, but I'm not saying it's not out there. I'm just saying I don't see it used a whole lot. IMAP facilitates access and organization of email from multiple endpoints. Then your email header contains information about the sender, recipient, email's route through the MTAs, and various authentication details. Now, if you are in a position at your company to look at a full email header wherever you are, it is very fascinating. And you probably are thinking one or two lines. It is a lot of information. There's a lot that is held in an email header. So email threats, there's a lot of them because people use email every day, and a lot of people have just gotten used to it and they see it as mundane. So phishing, we know what this one is, sends emails or displaying web announcements that falsely claim to be from a legitimate enterprise and attempts to trick users into providing private information or taking some sort of an action. Messages often contain a valid logo and a realistic looking signature block. They contain sender's name and contact information. Malicious payload, attachments that when open launch an attack that could possibly result in something like an invoice scam. Embedded links, displayed link is different from the underlying hyperlink, and trying to teach that to an end user was one of the most difficult things I did, was having to teach them, don't click on it, hover over the link. I don't know why that was something that was so hard, but teaching people how to see the difference between a displayed link and an embedded link was very difficult. Impersonation, this involves a threat actor gaining access to the email account of an individual and sending malicious emails from that account. Now, a lot of people think this is more prevalent than it actually is. A lot of times they will change the name, and if you actually look at the email address, it's like @gmail.com. or some other place. It's not actually from the correct domain. Forwarding, considered to be a dangerous practice. For example, increases the risk of sensitive corporate email messages being read by unauthorized individuals. I've seen and had this happen to me, where you forward and the autocomplete function that you have out there, and it starts to autocomplete who you think is the correct recipient, and it's not. Luckily, I've never had anything major had this happen, but it is very easy to do that with, as well as the reply all function. So there are lots of other ways that you can manage to do that. Email defenses. Sender policy framework. This is an email authentication method that identifies the MTA email servers that have been authorized to send emails for a domain, protects a domain from spoofing, prevents messages from a valid domain from being marked as spam. Now, I have seen a lot of valid domains being marked as spam, and there are ways to get around that, but just be aware that even if you have a valid domain, it is possible to get marked as spam. So don't think that that's faultless. It does happen from time to time. Domain keys, identified email, or DKIM, is an authentication technique that validates the content of email messages. Validation is accomplished through digital signatures. Domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance, or DMARC, allows the administrative owners of a domain to publish a policy in their DNS records. Policy specifies the mechanism, DKIM, SPF, or both, used when sending email from that domain. Okay, are there any questions on email before we hit data analytics? I think a lot of you have a lot of time that you've spent with email just as part of everyone's everyday life. Okay, data analytics. The use of automated tools to identify patterns in data that could indicate a security incident. This helps identify instances of data correlation. Now, do you know what they're talking about when they say data correlation? Exactly, data that matches. Conditional analysis is used to uncover one or more events that violate predefined rules. If the event has occurred, a response takes place. Now, one thing to remember with conditional analysis is you actually have to make the rules in order for those to be set off. Multi-conditional analysis helps identify multiple conditions in a specific sequence. The disadvantage, this generates a bunch of false positives. And I can verify that because when we first tried to do this with our spam filters, we were actually told, the natural response is to want to lock down and then lift up, but usually it is better to do the opposite way. So because of the amount of false positives that you create in doing that. And for me as a security person, I was like, oh gosh, that sounds absolutely wrong. But no, they were right. Because it created just an amazing amount of false positives. Signature analysis compares activities against a predefined signature. Disadvantages, signature databases have to be constantly updated. Signature-based monitoring may miss variations. There's no may about that. It will miss variations, and it is absolutely useless against zero-day attacks. And we're going to go past that one. Anomaly analysis detects statistical anomalies. This involves setting a baseline of normal activities, detects anomalies quickly without trying to understand the cause, and that's really one of the big keys right there. It doesn't try to understand the cause. It just says, hey, there's something weird here. Disadvantages may generate a high number of false positives. It really depends on how you set it up. May impose heavy processing loads on a system, may not detect events before a baseline is complete. In fact, a lot of the times before you have a complete baseline, it doesn't see anything very well. Behavioral analysis is based on the continuous analysis of the behavior processes and programs on a system. The user is alerted of abnormal actions that have been detected. Availability analysis examines whether a network device is properly functioning to provide resources to users. Trend analysis identifies changes or developments over time to uncover a pattern. And that analyzes changes in frequency and volume of events. Heuristic analysis, founded on experience-based techniques, uses an algorithm to determine if a vulnerability exists. And that one, just like when it comes to encryption algorithms, it is all down to whether or not your algorithm is any good. Impact analysis determines the implications of an event: timing, immediate or gradual, scope, localized impact, or organizational impact. This is why when it comes to data and analytics, so many security people use a lot of these in conjunction with each other because there's gaps in the knowledge. Okay, which data correlation analysis is designed for detecting statistical variations and identifying events that are significant deviation from a baseline? And don't feel bad if you don't remember this, just give it your best shot. Threat analysis, deviation analysis, data analysis, anomaly analysis. Anemone. that's kind of what it sounded like I was trying to say. Well, what do you know? Anomaly analysis was the one. So there you go. Okay. Security information and event management, SIEM, we've talked about this a couple of times, consolidates real-time monitoring and management of security information with analysis and reporting of security events. So the features are aggregation, combines data from multiple sources to build a comprehensive overview of attacks. Correlation, searches data acquired through the SIEM aggregation to identify common characteristics. Automated alerting and triggers. inform personnel of critical issues that require immediate attention. Time synchronization, organizes alerts according to the chronological order of occurrence. Event duplication, filters multiple alerts into a single alarm, which I have to tell you is very nice. Logs contain records of events that can be used for future analysis to prove regulatory compliance, which is also very nice. I don't seem to remember this topic. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that's bad, but very funny. SIEMs are capable of sentiment analysis, interpretations and classifications of emotions within text data using text analysis techniques. SIEMs are often paired with unified threat management or next generation firewall devices. Log files used to review data from corresponding devices. Specialized firewall appliances that can generate valuable logs are web application firewalls, which block specific websites or attacks that attempt to exploit known vulnerabilities in specific client software. Also blocks cross-site scripting and SQL injection attacks. NAT, the Network Address Translation Gateway, allows private IP addresses to be used on the internet, also masks IP addresses of your internal devices. Next generation firewalls, capable of basic firewall protections, filtering by applications, and deep packet inspection. Also performs URL filtering and intrusion prevention services. Unified threat management combines several security functions: packet filtering, anti-spam, anti-phishing, anti-spyware, encryption, intrusion protection, and web filtering. A proxy is a device that acts as a substitute on behalf of the primary device. That's just the generic definition of a proxy. Capable of detecting malware before it reaches the endpoint, can hide IP addresses of endpoints inside secure networks. That is what proxies were originally created for. Forward proxy, computer or application that intercepts user requests from the internal secure network and processes the request on behalf of the user. A reverse proxy routes requests coming from an external network to the corresponding internal server. The CISO wants a single tool to consolidate real-time monitoring of security information and has asked ZLID to make a recommendation. What tool is he likely to recommend? SIEM, NetFlow Analyzer, Packet Tracer, Resource Monitor. I was going to say, I think we all know where that's going. I'm really surprised no one has offered our standard sarcastic reply. Aha, there it is. I was going to say, no one has said it yet, but cope, there we go. Yes, a SIEM. So honestly, if you've ever tried to use a whole bunch of different products and then SIEM, it is night and day. Okay, various log formats are used when recording data. Windows Event Logging Service records, that records events from various sources and stores them in a single collection called your event log. Then there's System Logging Protocol, or syslog, a means by which network devices can use a standard message format to communicate with a logging server. This simplifies the monitoring of logs produced by network devices. I will say that if you're trying to pull system logs manually off of servers by yourself, it's a pain, and it's much better to create a server that does nothing but just pull in these logs. There's actually some freeware stuff and some open source stuff. There's one called Graylog, and there's some really good stuff that you can use out there that's not super expensive that helps you do a lot of this. Firewall log displays connections permitted or denied through a firewall. Some information is common across all types of firewall logs. However, a standard format does not exist, mainly because just like with different things, different district, like there's Cisco and there's different people that create the firewall appliances and the software, and they don't want to share. So a lot of the times they will not create something standard unless they're forced to. Query writing involves generating a short snippet of code that can be run against a log file or script to produce an output. Tools used, you can do a string search used to identify a specific item, or there's piping, which redirects the output from one command to function as the input to another command, which is also something you use in SQL. Yeah, OpenWRT, if you haven't used it before, that one's a good one. Okay, like I said, this one is a very short one. So that's it for that one. I was thinking about just pushing ahead through another one, but I am not feeling well, so I think we're just going to go ahead and stop with that, and I'll take some questions. Let me stop recording here.